Partners in Ministry, a presentation of Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation, dedicated to growing ministry support networks, introducing people to a cause that connects with their heart, bringing hope and encouragement to our communities as we seek together to serve as Christ served.
Well, welcome to Partners in Ministry. My name is Dan Smith, and today I'll be talking with Rob Talbot. Rob is the Executive Director of Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation. In this interview, we're going to discuss endowment giving, what it is, how it works, and who can participate. Well, welcome, Rob. Thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here, Dan.
One of the unique services that's provided by foundations is what's called endowment funds. What is an endowment fund?
Well, in layman's terms, it's just a basket of money that has been saved or donated that allows the foundation to gift or grant money to organizations. That's the loose general phrase about what an endowment fund is. Some organizations will allow the corpus or some of the corpus to be spent. Others will not allow that. And that means that only the growth that happens in that fund is allowed to be granted or spent.
Okay. So there's really two parts to endowment fund. There's the corpus, or the amount that was donated or given to the entity to keep track of. And then there's this investment income that is made off of that on an annual basis. Is that right?
Yeah. So if the foundation is doing well and the markets are favorable, then every year the endowment will grow. And depending upon their rules of that foundation, how much of that is given away each year, but generally about 5%.
Okay. So the money that Quakerdale has in its endowment fund, where did it come from?
Well, decades of people giving is folks giving $20 a month, all the way to people remembering us in their will, and lots of different ways that people have thought about us and really are excited about our mission to help children and families with from a Christian perspective. Those are the folks that have been the ones who have formed this endowment over the last we've been around for over 170 years, so it's just been a long time growing.
So the gifts from donors and their generosity over the last 50 plus years has gotten to the point to where now that endowment fund is generating hundreds of thousands of dollars for you to be able to work with year after year after year. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really neat, and it's a fun thing to be a part of because if the investments are doing what they're supposed to, it really means and our gifts into the endowment continue to grow. That means we can give more money away to great ministries that are helping children and families.
Sure. Yeah. Normally, when you think about fundraising, you think about dollars in, dollars out, and it's all happening within usually the first fiscal year. Rarely are you putting dollars in and then having it available to take out for the next year. But with an endowment fund, it sounds like the dollars are coming in, and then the investment income off of that is being generated year after year. It just goes on in perpetuity, it sounds like.
Exactly. And that's the thing that most of our organizations that we do give grants to, or even give support to by training or otherwise. They're really just trying to get going and pay the bills, and so when they're operating a young or small nonprofit, every dollar that comes in is probably spent, and sometimes it feels like more is spent than comes in, and but the blessing of a foundation is the idea here that we are working to have a corpus of money that we can actually give forever from.
Wow. Can donors still contribute to your endowment fund?
Yes, we get donations all the time where people decide that they'd like to remember us in their will. They just like I said, make a $25 gift or any size, and we really do welcome that because that goes into the endowment, and then the growth that comes off of that then moves into being money that we can give to great causes.
Yeah. So how do you use the annual income then that comes off of these investments there at the foundation?
So so we take the gifts that come in, they go right into the endowment. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
annual income. So there's investment income that happens. So what do you do with it? I mean, does it all go to grants, or do you use it in other ways?
we're very blessed in that our actual operating costs do not have to be used. We don't have to pay for that out of our endowment. So we have farmland that helps fund our operating costs, and because of that, every dollar that comes in goes into the endowment, and then it's invested, and the investments are looked at around uh, June and July to see how we did, and that decides how much our grants will be for the next year.
Okay, all right. So that's the process. Then the way that you decide how much of that annual investment income is going to be used for grants is what then? How do you process that?
Well, our goal is to give away about 5% of our corpus of our total investable assets. Um, Sometimes we can do better than that. We really haven't done less than that. Well, actually, a couple times we did less than that, but it was really just due to the fact that we had a limited number of grants. It's not probably going to be the problem in the future as we start to see more and more people realize that we've got the ability to help. And so 5% is the kind of general rule that we're working with. If we have a great year, we might be able to do a little bit more.
Okay. I was taking a look at your website just recently, and I noticed that for 2024, that you granted out 13 organizations in excess of $399,000. That is no small amount. That's quite a blessing.
I don't think people really realize how um, how much is happening, and when we ran our own programs before we became a foundation, we were obviously helping in the hundreds of thousands of dollars kids and families, but there were our own programs. And now as we sit here as a foundation, and we get the opportunity to help people all over the country as well as all over the earth, and um, groups that fit who we are, and what we've always been about, and what Josiah White wanted to have happen back in 1851.
Sure. Well, that's a great lead into my next question, and it is, what types of organizations are you looking for to fund?
So it's we intentionally don't make it too restrictive. We want to keep the doors open. We want to see what's going on. We want to be a part of interesting things going on. But there are some basic things. First of all, we want to help children and family programs. So anything that's helping children and families, or families that are together, oftentimes, we are very interested in hearing about those types of programs that are involving that kind of group of people. That's a big group of people, right? And then when we do that, we're also wanting there to be some sort of a Christian spiritual component to it, because that's our history. That's our identity as Quakerdale. We always provided a spiritual component in all of our programs that we operated.
So, is there a process that you use to determine um, who can apply? What organizations qualify to be able to apply for a grant?
Yeah, it's important that, to me, because I've had years of doing grants, filling out grants, and you find, hey, somebody's taking grant applications. You get their form and you start filling it out, and you hope maybe that you're a good fit, and you can't really talk to anybody about it. And so we've tried our best to short circuit those kinds of problems, and we want to. So you can go sign up and say, I'm interested in um, receiving a grant from Quakerdale Foundation. And then what happens next is you're going to hear back from us. And generally, we're going to be setting a meeting to, a short phone call to really talk about what that organization is doing, why they do it, do they have a good match with what we are, and if that's so, then we will when our grant season is open, we will share the grant opportunity with them. They can fill out the forms, and then it goes to our grant committee, who looks at that from between May and June, July, they are actually interviewing our grant uh, proposals, the folks who have submitted grants, and making some decisions. When our foundation finance committee decides how much money we have to grant, right about that time in July, then the board gets together and says, okay, we're going to grant to these organizations this amounts, and then we try to release that information to the public.
Okay. So there's an approval process that goes on for somebody to get on the list, and they go ahead and subscribe to a notification that lets them know that a cycle is going to be opened. Is it possible for somebody to lose that status as being an approved organization? Is that even a possibility?
Well, I think it could. I think that organizations can change their mission, their focus. They can go a different direction. Every time that um, we take a look at a grant application, we want to know for sure that, and we want to see that they're a real nonprofit, that they have a real operating or going ministry or program, and then we want to really talk to people and find out what's going on. Yeah, there's the possibility somebody could lose a status and go off the list.
Sure. I know you kind of gave it in summary form, but let's just kind of go over a little bit more detail. So I've gotten, as an organization, I've gotten approved. I've subscribed to this notification list. When am I going to get notification then again that a grant cycle is open? What time of the year?
So that's going to happen at around February, that the grant application process opens up. We do not have a 12-month application process. It is focused really in general between February and April, and that time is when we open it up. And so people get an email if they're on the list, and then they have the opportunity to fill out the forms, ask questions. I mean, again, we don't we don't want to waste anybody's time, but and we want to have applications that we understand them. So it's important that if there's questions that we help people along in that process. And then the board, grant committee makes their recommendations to the board again after they're done with their
Okay.
reviews.
Are there certain types of things that you look specifically for to grant that organizations are doing, or is it kind of a wide open plate?
It's pretty wide open, and again, that's intentional. But I will say that there are some the grant committee gets to decide. So there are times when they will say, I don't think that is as tight of a mission or a program as this one here. And I think this one's a better match. And those are things that are just inherent to the prerogative of the board. But uh, it's my job when somebody calls and signs up online, and then I have a phone call with them to help kind of help them know if this is a good fit or not. And sometimes I'll say I don't think it's the best fit, but maybe there's some other ways that we can help you be successful. And there are ways that we do it beyond traditional money grants, that we do help organizations be successful if they might not fit the traditional grant funds approach.
Okay. So not only do you help people with grants, there's all kinds of other services. We're not necessarily going to go into all of them at this particular point, but you do more than just grants to help organizations out with their ministries.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we found that out early when we spun off our ministries that Quakerdale was operating, and we spun them into their own nonprofits. We found that you can have a great mission and you can even have a great calling, but there are a lot of skills required that some people are not aware of. And uh, just having a good calling or a good mission or even a great program doesn't mean success. And so there are some skills and some knowledge that we like to help people be successful, even if we can't give them a grant.
Okay. So I've been approved. I've got my notification that a cycle's open. I've completed my application. That then goes, I believe what you said, to a grant committee. Who sits on that committee?
It's board members. Sometimes we'll have a community person or two that might also join the grant committee, but it's board members who are going through and speaking and checking out the full application and making actual calls and often interviews.
Okay.
with those grant requests.
So that grant committee has done due diligence and they come up with the list of organizations and amounts of grants, and they then present that to the board. And they're the ones then that make the final decision as to who receives an award and how much.
Yep, yep, and that happens generally if everything's going on schedule. That happens in the September board meeting when that is decided.
So is that then when organizations are notified that they are going to receive a grant and how much that will be?
Yeah, usually by mid-October, if not before, we will send out grant. Well, we'll let them know, and then we'll send out agreements. We do have some expectations that there'll be a quarterly report that they would send in to tell us just for our fiduciary responsibilities, good stewardship to know what's going on. So, one-page report quarterly, and then a financial report mid-year, as well as a end of the year, end of the grant period report that we'd like to hear. How did things finish up? How did it go?
Sure, sure. And then typically, when do the organizations finally receive their grant awards?
So if it's a grant for under $10,000, it will be by the end of July, they'll receive their grant funds. If it's more than it's 10,000 or more, we generally, unless there are certain circumstances, we are generally going to pay those grants and that grant in quarterly payments. So every, by the end of January and every third month after that.
Okay. So if I'm an organization out there and I'm really interested in being a part of the grant process, first thing I need to do is fill out that grant interest application so I can get my approved status. Once that happens, and go ahead and subscribe to the notification list, and then everything is just kind of on autopilot after that. It's just going to come my way. It sounds like, for me to be able to complete the application process.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that, I think we've seen people get stuck that they sign out, but maybe they don't actually submit their application online, and they think they did. That's a problem. So one way for people to know for sure that they actually are on the list is they're going to get an email back saying, verify that this is you, this is really you, and not somebody else
Sure.
submitting for this. So watch for that email after you submit your application or your original application to be on the grant list.
Sure. Yeah, sometimes that crazy spam filter can kind of do a number, and you think it's all the way through, and it's just sitting there, sitting in a spam folder somewhere. So you kind of got to watch out for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Rob, that's some great information, and it's I did not realize just the extent to which you're able to do grants, and probably the most impressive thing to me about that process is to think that here are people that 50 years ago were given $25 here, $10 there, never knowing that they were going to be a part of a process that's granting more than 400, almost $400,000 in grants 50 years later. That's amazing. What a blessing.
Yeah, and the neat thing is we got a neat estate in this year, which means that's going to go up next year. And so somebody who put us in their estate 40 years ago
Mm,
lived to be over 100 years old, and we didn't even know. But it's a blessing to be able to you know be a good steward of people's gifts and help them carry on their own legacy.
yeah. I know one of the things that I'm proud about as far as being the director of development for Quakerdale is the fact that we are intentionally trying to fund people that are faith based or have a faith based component and are committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ in a day when it's really hard to find funds because they'll actually say no religious groups or nobody with any kind of religious affiliation. It's nice to know that there's somebody who's taking the other step and saying, no, that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that these neat ministries that are doing a great work have the funds that they need to continue to share Jesus Christ through our world here and abroad. That's awesome.
Yeah, and when there's about every county has a community foundation, right?
Hmm.
Um, those and there's lots of private foundations. But you're right. I mean, it is at this point in our cultural setting environment that Christian organizations are often left out in the cold. And I think that if we as a foundation can get behind these great organizations who are helping the widows and the orphans and the families be successful, that's a great place for us to be. And so we want to come right alongside those organizations who couldn't get help. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with the community foundations, right? They're doing great
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But but we've been around for over 170 years and kept our mission. And I think that's important, because there are a lot of great organizations who lose their Christian foundation, their the reason that they even came into existence. And
Mm.
I'm really proud to be a part of one that's been able to hold on to that.
Well, Rob, I just want to thank you for helping us better understand the blessing of endowment giving, how that has become a huge tool for Quakerdale and its ministry to support the work of the gospel all over Iowa, the United States, and the world. And I hope our listeners get a better understanding of just what that is, and can make a decision whether they want to be a part of it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage everybody to go to the website, Quakerdale-foundation.org. Sorry, and look at those organizations. Take a little tour and see those great things that they're doing, and because it's pretty exciting to be a part of those.
Well, if you got any questions, or if you'd like to learn more about the Quakerdale Foundation, you can see their contact information right here on the screen. You can also find it in the show notes for this episode on our website, or in the description of this YouTube video. On behalf of the Quakerdale Foundation, Rob Talbot, and Partners in Ministry, I want to thank you for joining us today. And until next time, let's get out there and serve as Christ serves.
This has been a presentation of Partners in Ministry, a podcast of Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation. To learn more and see the show notes for this and other episodes, visit our website. To stay informed of up and coming broadcasts, subscribe to our e-newsletter. To invest in our mission, donate today.